What if the most iconic marriage of the decade was built on a foundation of fear? The world watched in awe as Lisa Marie Presley, daughter of the legendary Elvis Presley, married the king of pop, Michael Jackson. The media frenzy was deafening. But behind the scenes, there was one voice that was eerily quiet, but full of dread. Priscilla Presley, a mother who had seen the horrors of fame firsthand, knew the dangers of living in the public eye all too well. She had been married to Elvis, a man whose fame was both a blessing and a curse, and she had lived through the emotional wreckage that followed. But when her daughter stepped into the spotlight with Michael Jackson, Priscilla's worst fears began to materialize. She saw the cracks in the facade of perfection, the instability that others couldn't or didn't want to see. Priscilla's protective instincts kicked in, but how could she shield her daughter from a marriage that was already crumbling under the weight of the world's gaze? This wasn't just about the paparazzi or the headlines. This was about love, betrayal, and a mother's desperate attempt to save her daughter from repeating her own painful history. How do you protect your child from a man adored by millions, but whose every move screams of danger? What do you do when you know the truth, but the world is too consumed by the fantasy to see it? In the midst of the glitter and glam of celebrity life, there was a deep, unsettling truth that few were willing to acknowledge. Priscilla Presley feared that her daughter's marriage to Michael Jackson was doomed before it even began, and she was right. Priscilla Presley was no stranger to the destructive power of fame. As the wife of Elvis Presley, she had witnessed firsthand the pressures that came with being married to a man whose every move was watched by millions. In the early years of their marriage, she had been swept up in the fantasy of being part of rock and roll royalty, but the reality of that life quickly became something darker. Elvis's fame had consumed him, and it had consumed their marriage, leaving Priscilla with emotional scars that would stay with her for years. When Lisa Marie Presley, her only daughter, came of age, Priscilla vowed that she would never let her suffer the same fate. She watched closely, always protective, always worried. Lisa Marie had grown up with the knowledge that her father was an icon, but she had also felt the absence of him as a parent. The weight of the Presley name came with its own unique burdens. The loneliness, the longing for stability, and the constant intrusion of the media were constant companions for Lisa Marie as she navigated her teenage years. When Lisa Marie married Michael Jackson, Priscilla knew she was walking into a storm. Michael Jackson was not just a global superstar. He was a deeply troubled man, someone whose personal demons were already well documented. There were whispers about his eccentric behavior, his odd relationships with children, and his ever-changing appearance. Priscilla had lived with the dark side of fame. She understood how fragile the human psyche could be when it was constantly under the public's gaze. But this was different. Priscilla knew Michael's troubled past would eventually catch up with him. She knew that beneath his public persona, his unmatched talent and endless charm, there was a man desperately trying to escape a lifetime of trauma. She had seen it before. She had lived it. But this time, it wasn't her she was worried about. It was her daughter, Lisa Marie. Lisa had been searching for love and acceptance for years. She had been married before, but those relationships had ended in heartbreak. Now here she was again, this time with Michael Jackson, a man whose emotional scars were far deeper than she could have imagined. As Lisa Marie embarked on this whirlwind marriage, Priscilla's anxiety grew. She had watched her daughter grow up in the shadows of fame, and now she was stepping into the very same trap Priscilla had once been ensnared in. What would become of Lisa Marie in the wake of this marriage? Could Priscilla protect her from the inevitable collapse that was sure to come? Priscilla was conflicted. She loved her daughter with all her heart, but she knew that sometimes love wasn't enough to shield someone from the dangers of the world they lived in. The stakes were higher now than ever before. Priscilla had seen what fame could do to a person, and she wasn't sure if Lisa Marie would survive the fallout. As Lisa Marie Presley and Michael Jackson's marriage began to unfold, the cracks in their relationship started to show almost immediately. For the world, it seemed like a fairy tale, a beautiful, high-profile union between two of the most famous figures in the world. But for those closest to them, especially Priscilla, the signs of trouble were impossible to ignore. Priscilla, ever the protective mother, watched as her daughter's new life became a circus. She could see how the media's obsessive gaze was wearing on Lisa Marie. Every moment of their marriage was dissected and broadcasted, from their first public appearances together to every private moment that was leaked to the press. For Lisa, the constant spotlight was nothing new, but this was different. This wasn't just about being the daughter of Elvis Presley. Now, she was the wife of Michael Jackson, and every step she took was scrutinized by the world. Priscilla's concern deepened as she saw the emotional toll this was taking on her daughter. Lisa Marie was trapped in a toxic cycle, caught between her love for Michael and the reality of his increasingly erratic behavior. Michael, once a shy and reserved child star, had evolved into a man who was emotionally fragile and seemingly unable to cope with the pressures of fame. His eccentricities were well known, but as their marriage progressed, Priscilla began to suspect that his mental health was deteriorating. His strange behavior and the constant rumors about his personal life began to unsettle her. In private, Priscilla often tried to talk to Lisa Marie about her concerns. She was worried about Michael's stability, but more than that, she was concerned about what this relationship was doing to her daughter. Lisa Marie, despite her mother's warnings, defended Michael. She was convinced that he needed her, that their love was real, and that she could save him from his own demons. But Priscilla knew better. She had seen this before. She had watched Elvis spiral into self-destruction, surrounded by a team of enablers who refused to confront his struggles. Now, she was watching her daughter fall into the same trap. The media, ever hungry for scandal, only fueled the tension. The stories about Michael's behavior became increasingly bizarre and troubling. The whispers about his mental health, his relationship with children, and his strange public appearances couldn't be ignored. The paparazzi had a field day, and with every new rumor, the pressure on Lisa Marie and Michael intensified. Priscilla could only watch helplessly as her daughter was torn apart by the world's relentless judgment. But the tension didn't just come from the outside. It was building within the Presley family itself. Priscilla found herself torn between supporting her daughter's decisions and trying to protect her from a man who, in her eyes, was becoming more and more unpredictable. Lisa Marie, in turn, felt caught in the middle. She loved her mother, but she also loved Michael. She didn't want to disappoint either of them, and so she began to pull away, isolating herself from the one person who had always been there for her, her mother. As the weeks turned into months, Priscilla's fears grew more urgent. The cracks in Michael and Lisa Marie's marriage were no longer subtle. The emotional toll on both of them was evident to everyone but Lisa Marie herself. Priscilla couldn't shake the feeling that this marriage was heading for disaster, and she feared for her daughter's emotional well-being. She had already lost one man she loved to the destructive force of fame. Would she have to watch her daughter suffer the same fate? The tension between Priscilla and Lisa Marie reached its breaking point when the truth about Michael Jackson's unraveling mental state could no longer be ignored. There was no denying it any longer. What had started as subtle warnings and quiet concerns now erupted into a public spectacle that left everyone shaken. Priscilla's fears for her daughter were finally confirmed, but it came at a tremendous cost. It was during a particularly tense moment, following one of Michael's bizarre public appearances, when Priscilla finally confronted Lisa Marie. Michael's strange behavior had reached a new height. Rumors of his legal troubles, his increasingly erratic public persona, and his inability to maintain control of his personal life were everywhere. The press had reported on his oddities for years, But now, the situation had escalated to a point that was impossible to ignore. Priscilla, in an attempt to protect her daughter, finally laid bare her fears. "You can't keep ignoring this, Lisa. Michael is not well. You know this. I know this. He's not the man you think he is." Her voice shook with a mixture of pain and frustration. She wasn't just speaking as a mother worried about a troubled marriage. She was speaking as a woman who had lived through the same heartache, the same fears, and the same suffocating scrutiny. Lisa Marie, torn between her love for Michael and her loyalty to her mother, reacted with defiance. "You don't understand. You don't know him like I do. He needs me." Her voice cracked, the emotional weight of her words evident as she fought back tears. She wasn't just defending Michael, she was defending her own heart, her own hope that this marriage, this love, could be the one thing that saved her. But the truth was undeniable. Her relationship with Michael was slowly consuming her. The confrontation between mother and daughter was raw, emotional, and heartbreaking. The deep love that Priscilla had for her daughter was evident, but so too was her fear. Priscilla knew that Lisa Marie had to face the truth on her own. She had been through the devastation of watching a loved one's self-destructive behavior before. Her marriage to Elvis Presley had been a constant battle against the forces of addiction and fame. Now, she had to stand by and watch as her daughter faced the same painful reality. For Lisa Marie, it was a moment of clarity, but also one of confusion and conflict. In her heart, she knew her mother was right. The man she had married was not the person she had hoped he would be. Michael Jackson, the man who had once been a beacon of light in her life, was now a broken shadow of himself. But the public had already invested so much in their love story, and she couldn't bring herself to let go. But as the pressure mounted, Lisa Marie's emotional state began to crack. She found herself trapped between two conflicting desires: her need to protect Michael and her desire to protect herself. The toll of the public scrutiny, the rumors, the constant stress, it was all too much. The love she had once felt for Michael was now overshadowed by a growing sense of dread, and the emotional weight of that realization was too much for her to bear. The final turning point came when Michael's legal troubles became a matter of public record, and the media, relentless in its pursuit of scandal, laid bare every detail of his life. The very marriage that had once seemed like a fairy tale now felt like a tragedy in the making. Lisa Marie, in her heart, knew that the inevitable was coming. The woman who had been caught up in the whirlwind of fame, love, and hope was now facing the reality of what it meant to be married to a man who couldn't or wouldn't take care of himself. Priscilla watched from the sidelines as her daughter began to unravel. She had feared this moment would come, but no amount of preparation could have prepared her for the heartbreak of seeing her daughter in so much pain. It was the moment Priscilla had dreaded for years. The moment when she would lose her daughter not to the public's judgment, but to a man who was, in his own way, as broken as she had been. The inevitable finally happened. Lisa Marie Presley and Michael Jackson's marriage came to an end, not with a bang, but with a quiet, painful unraveling. The world had watched their every move, but in the end it was the emotional toll of the relationship that had torn them apart. For Lisa Marie, the aftermath was a confusing mix of relief and regret. She had entered the marriage with so much hope, convinced that her love for Michael could heal him. But now she was left with the heartbreaking reality that love alone couldn't fix everything. In the wake of their divorce, Lisa Marie was left to pick up the pieces of her life. She had been publicly vulnerable, emotionally exposed, and now the world seemed to look at her with pity. The public's reaction was harsh. Many had speculated for years that the marriage would end in disaster, and when it finally did, they were quick to confirm their suspicions. But for Lisa Marie, this was more than just a failed marriage. It was the collapse of a dream, the shattering of the hope that she could save Michael, and perhaps the painful realization that she could not save herself either. Priscilla, too, had to face the consequences of the marriage's collapse. Her fears had been validated, but that didn't bring her comfort. She had watched, helpless, as her daughter's life was torn apart by a marriage she had never truly supported. She had tried to protect Lisa Marie, but the daughter she loved had chosen to follow her own path, just as Priscilla had done many years ago. For Priscilla, there was also a sense of guilt that lingered. Had she done enough? Could she have intervened earlier to prevent the emotional damage Lisa Marie had suffered? She couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps, if she had been more forceful, more insistent, maybe her daughter wouldn't have had to endure the fallout of a marriage to a man who wasn't equipped to love her the way she needed to be loved. But as the months passed, Priscilla's relationship with Lisa Marie began to heal. The two women, bound by their shared experience of heartbreak and loss, grew closer. Priscilla had always been Lisa Marie's rock, but now, more than ever, she became her emotional anchor. Through late-night conversations, silent support, and shared tears, Priscilla helped her daughter navigate the painful aftermath of the divorce. Lisa Marie began to realize that the life she had once dreamed of with Michael Jackson could never be her reality. The public, meanwhile, moved on. Their divorce became just another chapter in the ongoing saga of celebrity marriages, but for Lisa Marie, the scars would remain. She struggled with the emotional aftermath of her marriage to Michael Jackson for years, trying to rebuild her life and find peace. But the damage was done, and there was no escaping the ghosts of that union. As for Michael, the fallout from his relationship with Lisa Marie added another layer of complexity to his already troubled life. His public image took a hit, and the media, which had once been so enamored by him, now turned their focus to his increasingly erratic behavior. His personal life continued to spiral out of control, with his legal battles and health issues making headlines. Despite the end of his marriage to Lisa Marie, Michael's emotional struggles never fully went away, and in many ways they worsened in the years that followed. For Priscilla, the resolution of this chapter in their lives was bittersweet. She had feared that her daughter would suffer the same fate she had, caught in the whirlwind of fame, love, and personal destruction. And in a sense, Priscilla was right. Lisa Marie had been left broken, but she had also emerged stronger. The marriage to Michael Jackson, for all its turmoil, had forced Lisa Marie to confront her own vulnerabilities and find a new path forward. But the scars of that relationship would never fully fade. They would remain a part of Lisa Marie's journey, and in many ways, they would shape the rest of her life. In the end, the marriage between Lisa Marie Presley and Michael Jackson was a tragic reminder of the price of fame. Behind the glamour, the headlines, and the flashing cameras, there were two souls desperately seeking love and stability in a world that only saw them as commodities. For Lisa Marie, the emotional fallout was devastating. She had entered the marriage with hope, with the belief that love could conquer all, but she left with a deep understanding of how fame and personal demons could destroy even the most sincere connections. Priscilla Presley's fears had not only been validated, but they had also served as a painful lesson. A mother's instinct is often more than just a feeling. It's a warning, a deep-rooted understanding of what lies beneath the surface. Priscilla had tried to protect her daughter from the same heartbreak she had suffered in her own life, but in the end, she had to watch as history repeated itself. The difference was that this time, Priscilla had the clarity to see the danger, even when Lisa Marie couldn't. The aftermath of Lisa Marie and Michael Jackson's marriage left scars that would remain for years to come. But it also gave Lisa Marie the strength to move forward, to redefine herself and rebuild her life on her own terms. The journey was painful, but it was also a path to healing, self-discovery, and eventually peace. As we reflect on this story, we are reminded of the cost of fame, the emotional toll it takes on those who live under its microscope. We see how easily it can destroy the most intimate parts of our lives, turning love into a battleground. But we also see the strength of a mother's love and the resilience of a daughter who, despite the heartache, emerges stronger on the other side. So, what do we learn from this marriage? It's a stark reminder that fame is not always the glittering prize it seems to be. It's a world where emotional well-being is often sacrificed for the sake of public image, and where the consequences of a high-profile relationship are felt long after the cameras stop flashing. But there is hope. If you've been touched by this story, if you can relate to the struggles of love, fame, and family, we encourage you to share your thoughts. What do you think about Priscilla's fears? Would you have done the same if you were in her shoes? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to dive deeper into these unforgettable stories of love, loss, and the unbreakable bond between mother and daughter.